Also made a healthy profit importing and selling tea on the side.
That's funny. We sold eggs and butter 2 centuries later.
We're continuing our Ireland road trip with a visit to Kilkenny, followed by a return to Dublin for some live music at the world-famous Temple Bar. After leaving Blarney Castle, we made our way east towards Kilkenny, enjoying the drive along scenic country and residential roads, thankfully a break from the highways. This is Kilkenny, one of Ireland's most charming medieval towns. With its cobbled streets, the majestic Kilkenny Castle, and a thriving art scene, this riverside gem blends centuries of history with a vibrant modern vibe. Our first stop, the Smithwick experience, a must for Matt who's grown fond of their beer over the years. Beer has been brewed on this site for centuries, starting with Franciscan friars until their dissolution in 1537. Smithwick's took over in 1706. While brewing was moved to Dublin in 2013, the Kilkenny site reopened the following year as a tour experience.
But grim necessity brings forth the most glorious invention. The clever monks take their water, and out of necessity purify it, crafting it into beer.
We met lifelike storytellers from the Smithwick family through the ages who guided us through the brewery's rich history.
The name is John Smithwick. My family left England for Wexford, only to be all but wiped out. One lad made it to Brewery, where the Smithwick clan overcame adversity and began to grow again. 20 years later, I came to this very house. It was at this stage that I decided to open my very own small craft brewery. Perhaps it was the echo of the monks' brewing, still ringing in the stones.
I think what makes John's story even more impressive, though, is the fact that he was a Catholic, and they were living through the times of the penal laws in Ireland back then. I suppose what they were really were, they were a series of laws introduced by the British in Ireland in order to oppress Irish Catholics. So Irish Catholics had very few rights in society back in those times, and they couldn't do things like own a business, and they couldn't own property, they couldn't be politicians, very much so second-class citizens in Irish society. So this was a bit of an issue for John, who wanted to set up his own business, so he kind of had to come up with a way around this. And what he did was he partnered up with a guy called Richard Cole, so the guy that originally owned Kilkenny Lodge, and they kind of struck up a deal between them. Richard said he'd be the face of the business, he'd make it legal in the eyes of the law, and he could do that because he was a wealthy Protestant. So
I also made a healthy profit importing and selling tea on the side.
That's funny. We sold eggs and butter 2 centuries later.
We even sold mineral water from the well.
Yes, but you didn't have a penal law to deal with. Nobody could really know that I was running the show.
Indeed, but don't forget, I had 2 world wars to contend with.
So at the turn of the century, I nearly had to close the doors. Thankfully, the army came to the rescue. A thirsty bunch they were.
And I lived through the Great Famine. We even opened soup kitchens for the starving.
every single year we harvest about 3,000 tonnes of Irish barley from here, from this part of the country, so it's on the wall behind you there, I'm not making it up. So most of it comes from this part of the country. Once it's harvested, it's brought up to a place in Kildare called Mint Malt. It's on the bags behind me there, where it's malted, and then it's brought over to the St James's Gate Brewery in Dublin, where they make it into beer. Of course, it wasn't always malted up in Kildare. We actually would have done it here on site in Kilkenny ourselves for an awful long time. So what we do in here is we actually combine the water and the barley. We mix them all together for about 4 hours, and it creates this really thick substance that kind of looks like mashed potatoes. That's called mash. So IPAs would come from the colonial times, when the British would have colonised India. Obviously, they wanted to bring their beer with them. But the only issue was the journey was so long in those times that the beer kept going stale on the ships. So they kind of had to try and come up with a way to keep their beer fresh, I suppose. And what they did was they actually packed the tops of the barrels with ale with hops, and it ended up creating this very strong fruity coffee beer that we now call IPAs. So that's where they came from. It's only beer, you know about it. So that's the first roll of hops.
Next, we got hands-on with the ingredients, smelling and tasting the grains and hops that go into each brew.
So if you want to pick up the first test tube on the far left, so the malted barley. Take off, so the one on the left, the one on the far left. So pick it up and give it a smell first of all to start off with. And whenever you're ready, then you can also give it a taste. What are you smelling when you smell this?
Then came the part everyone waits for, the tasting. We had the option of a pint or a flight. We both chose the flight, of course.
Half an hour. We have the Kilkenny Draft Irish beer, pale ale in the middle, and the red ale on the right.
Before leaving Kilkenny, we wandered the streets to admire its medieval architecture. Warning, this next photo may surprise some American viewers. While grabbing drinks and sandwiches at a local shop, I snapped a shot of unrefrigerated eggs. It's normal outside the US because the eggs aren't washed after laying, keeping their natural protective coating intact. In the US, eggs are washed before packaging, which removes that coating, so refrigeration is necessary. And back to our journey. Through some family research, I discovered that I had ancestors from Kilkenny. One, my 4 times great-grandfather is believed to be buried in Ballyouskill. At Smithwick, I asked if anyone was familiar with the area, and luckily they were. A staff member suggested the Church of the Assumption as the best place to look. We found the church and cemetery easily and were amazed by the old gravestones. While some were weathered beyond reading, I carefully examined each one. We didn't find my ancestor, but I'll be posting the legible gravestones in a blog post. That will be linked in the description once it's posted. Maybe you'll find a family name of your own. That evening, we made our way back to Dublin, later than planned, so we missed dinner at any local restaurants. Thankfully, our hotel bartender saved the night with a pizza from the kitchen and a whiskey pairing. For our last night in Dublin, we took a walk to the Temple Bar area. With its cobblestone streets, live music, bustling pubs, and a lively atmosphere, the Temple Bar earns its reputation as a must-visit spot for tourists. Even late on a Tuesday night, the place was packed and we were all for it. We each grabbed a pint of Guinness and found seats to enjoy the live tunes. Hopefully I've edited this well enough to avoid any copyright strikes. To end the night, we hit a late night spot for sandwiches. Google Maps tells me it was Insomnia Coffee Company. Correct me if I'm wrong. We followed the locals' lead and ordered the chicken sandwich, which hit the spot after all that walking. Delicious filling and the perfect way to wrap up a busy day. Next time, we tour the Jameson Distillery, grab lunch at Dublin's oldest pub, the Brazen Head, and sadly, say goodbye to the Emerald Isle. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and consider commenting and/or subscribing. This will help us learn which videos you like best. Also, be sure to follow us everywhere at Grecoban.